Girl, you outgrew the storm that tried to break you. You're not her anymore, the one who cried herself to sleep wondering if this life would ever get better, if this pain would ever pass, if she'd ever be enough. You are not that same girl, and it's not that she was weak. No, don't you dare say that. She was strong in a way nobody ever saw. She carried things in silence that would have crushed louder voices. She wore a smile when her soul was collapsing inside. She was doing her best with what she had, and still she was growing, quietly, slowly, painfully, but growing. See, the thing about storms is they don't ask for permission. They just come. They arrive uninvited, unannounced, unapologetic. They shake your world, turn your peace into chaos, and demand a version of you that you never knew existed. But girl, you showed up, you didn't fold. Even when your knees buckled and your faith trembled, you stayed in it. You stayed when you wanted to run. You believed when it didn't make sense. You held on when everything in you wanted to let go. And that is where the shift began. Don't let anybody tell you nothing changed. Don't let the world measure your growth by how loud you are now or how visible your wins are. Your growth happened in the dark, in the silence, in the quiet decision to keep going. You outgrew bitterness. You outgrew needing validation. You outgrew shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You outgrew the need to prove yourself to people who were never rooting for you in the first place. You outgrew the pain, the fear, the lie that told you you'd never rise from this. What tried to break you became the soil where you planted new roots. What was sent to destroy you became the very thing that revealed your strength, and I know. Sometimes you look back and feel guilty for leaving parts of yourself behind. But you're not abandoning her, you're honoring her, you're saying, thank you for surviving, now let me thrive. You're telling her, I see you, I love you, but I can't stay there anymore. Because healing means moving, it means becoming. It means letting go of the version of you that knew how to survive, so you can meet the version of you that knows how to live. And I get it, sometimes people don't recognize you anymore. They say you've changed and they don't mean it as a compliment. But that's okay, let them talk. You're not here to stay familiar. You're here to be faithful to who you're becoming. You're not here to fit into the version of you they're comfortable with. You're here to fit into the calling God placed on your life. Let's be real, storms don't just pass through your life, they pass through your identity. They challenge your worth, your voice, your boundaries. They test your faith in ways you can't explain, and yet here you are. Maybe a little quieter, maybe a little more guarded, but still here. That's not weakness, baby, that's wisdom. You learned, you adapted. You got tired of bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You stopped chasing peace in places that only gave you pieces. You realized that some storms weren't meant to be fought, they were meant to move you. You're not the woman who begged to be chosen. You're not the girl who questioned her worth because someone else couldn't see it. You're not the one who kept breaking her back to build what was already falling apart. You're not her anymore, and that's a good thing. You don't have to mourn that version of yourself. You can thank her and still let her go. You can love her and still rise without her. Because now you walk differently, not with arrogance, but with awareness. You know what it costs to rebuild. You know what it means to lose yourself and fight your way back. That crown on your head, you didn't buy it. You earned it. Every tear was currency. Every silent scream was an offering. Every why me was turned into wisdom. You didn't just survive. You were shaped, molded, elevated. You wear that crown now, not as decoration, but as declaration. I am not who I used to be. And thank God for that. Just because you've been broken doesn't mean you're unworthy. I need you to hear that deep in your bones. Because somewhere along the line, life convinced you that pain disqualifies you, that failure strips you of value, that heartbreak makes you less. But girl, that's a lie. Being broken didn't make you less. It made you real, it made you human, it made you touchable. And if anything, it made you more valuable because now you carry wisdom that only walking through fire can give. They didn't see the moments when you sat in the silence, questioning everything. They didn't see the nights when your pillow caught every tear you refused to let the world see. They didn't hear the whispers of shame that told you you'd never be whole again. But I need you to understand this. The cracks in your soul are not the end of your story. They are the entry points for grace. They're where the light got in. They're how love found you in the wreckage. That broken version of you still had breath. She still had power, and she's the reason you made it here. The world taught you to be ashamed of your mess, to hide your wounds, to clean yourself up before you come forward. But that's not where the healing lives. The healing lives in the honest places, the raw places, the real places. Where your voice trembles but you speak anyway. Where your heart still aches but you show up anyway. That's the kind of strength that doesn't always look pretty, but it's holy and it's worthy. I know you've replayed the mistakes. I know you've looked at yourself through the lens of what didn't work out, who walked away, what you lost, what you gave up just to keep something together that was never meant for you. And I know it left you feeling used up and empty, but even in that emptiness you were enough, even in the breaking you were becoming. Because pain doesn't make you disposable, pain prepares you. Pain stretches you, pain rewrites you. And girl, you didn't crumble under the weight of it. You carried it until you could finally lay it down. I want you to stop punishing yourself for who you were when you didn't know better. Stop crucifying yourself for trusting too easily, loving too hard, staying too long. You were just trying to be whole in a world that benefits from you being broken. You were looking for safety in people who hadn't even found it in themselves. And that's not your shame to carry, that's your wisdom to claim, because now you know better, and now that you know, you can move differently, not from bitterness, but from clarity. You're not broken beyond repair, you're rebuilding, and rebuilding takes time, it takes truth. It takes permission to not be okay for a little while. It takes grace to stumble while you're learning how to walk again. You don't have to wear the mask anymore. You don't have to fake strong. It's okay to be real. It's okay to say, I'm healing. That's a full sentence. That's a declaration of power. That's you fixing your crown with hands that have trembled but never quit. You see, broken doesn't mean God walked away. It means He's getting ready to do a deeper work in you. Not a surface touch-up, not a bandage kind of healing. I'm talking soul-level restoration, the kind that makes you unrecognizable even to yourself. The kind that makes people who thought they knew you stop and stare, because they can't figure out how you're still standing. But you know how. You know it was grace. You know it was mercy. You know it was every moment you chose to believe that there was still something left in you worth fighting for. There's nothing wrong with you because you're healing. There's nothing ugly about the process. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not disqualified. You're chosen. You're covered. You're called. You're being refined, not rejected. You're being lifted, not left, and yes, you've been broken, but baby, you're still worthy of love, still worthy of joy, still worthy of peace, still worthy of starting over, still worthy of wearing that crown like it was always yours. So don't shrink back, don't hide, don't disqualify yourself from the table God already reserved your seat at. Pull up. Head high, heart open, because your worth was never in the perfection, it was always in the perseverance. And the fact that you're still here, that's the proof. Healing is messy, but it's holy. It doesn't come with a map or a timeline. It doesn't follow your calendar or your plans. It doesn't show up looking clean or composed. No, healing is the cry that comes out of nowhere at midnight. It's the silence between texts that used to feel like home. It's the trembling hand that reaches for peace in places that once held pain. It's slow, it's sacred, and it's not always pretty. We love the idea of healing when it's framed in neat packages, new beginnings, fresh starts, redemption stories wrapped in a bow. But that's not what it looks like when you're in the thick of it. Healing looks like showing up to the same life with a different mindset, even when the situation hasn't changed. It looks like resisting the urge to go back to what's familiar, even though it still calls your name. It's wiping tears from your face with one hand while holding on to hope with the other. And I know that some days it feels like you're going backward. I know how it feels to think, I should be over this by now. But girl, you are not a project with a deadline. You are a soul with layers, with history, with trauma, with a story that's still unfolding. You don't have to rush your way into wholeness. You just have to be willing to keep going, to keep showing up, to keep choosing softness, even when life taught you to be hard. That's healing, that's holy. You're learning how to breathe again without fear, learning how to exist without editing yourself, learning how to feel without apologizing for it. You're reclaiming your voice, your worth, your identity piece by piece. And sometimes healing isn't about adding anything new. It's about removing what was never meant for you. It's about unlearning the lies. The ones that told you you're too much, or not enough, or hard to love. Lies that buried your spirit beneath someone else's comfort. Let's be real, healing will test you. It will pull the truth out of you. You'll find yourself standing in front of mirrors, staring at a version of you that no longer fits but is still hard to let go of. You'll wonder if you're allowed to want more, to expect more, to need more. And the answer is yes. You are allowed to outgrow what hurt you. You are allowed to leave the spaces that couldn't hold you. You are allowed to say, I deserve better, and not feel guilty about it. And it's not always going to feel empowering. Sometimes it'll feel lonely, because healing often means detaching from people, habits, and places you once thought you couldn't live without. But the emptiness isn't punishment, it's space being made for peace, for joy, for newness. Don't be afraid of the quiet seasons. That's where God works, that's where He speaks, that's where you become. You don't have to fake it through this part. You don't have to pretend to be over things you're still processing. Healing isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about becoming someone you can live with. Someone you can trust. Someone who doesn't abandon herself just to make someone else comfortable. So if your voice shakes while you speak your truth, let it. If your hands tremble while you set boundaries, that's still strength. If you cry while you say goodbye to what you once begged for, that's still power. Don't let anyone tell you healing has to look strong to be real. It just has to be honest. Some people won't understand the process. They'll see the surface and miss the struggle. They'll expect the old version of you to show back up because they were more comfortable with her. But that girl, she's no longer in charge. The girl who tolerated less, the girl who stayed silent, the girl who accepted crumbs, she's resting now. And the woman rising in her place is learning that healing isn't weakness. It's warfare. It's rebuilding after the wreckage. It's daring to dream while the dust is still settling. It's walking into rooms like you belong there, even when your knees still remember how it felt to crawl. Give yourself grace, girl. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't need to explain your process to people who only saw your highlight reel. This is your journey, you're becoming, and if all you did today was survive, that's enough, because healing isn't a destination. It's a daily choice to honor yourself. To sit with what hurts and love yourself through it. That is the holy work. That is fixing your crown while the world expects you to fall apart. And you're doing it, even when it doesn't feel like it. You're healing. You don't owe your past an apology. Not for what you didn't know, not for who you had to be, not for the survival instincts that kept you afloat when everything around you was sinking. You don't owe anyone a justification for the decisions you made when your heart was bleeding and your vision was blurred. That version of you wasn't wrong, she was trying. She was reaching for something solid in a world that kept shifting under her feet. And if she clung to things she should have released, if she stayed longer than she should have, if she didn't walk away when the red flags were blinding, that doesn't mean she failed. That means she was human. We carry so much shame for who we used to be. We rehearse our mistakes like they're a courtroom case we have to defend. But what if I told you you didn't need to defend her anymore? What if you could look back at that girl and just say, thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for enduring what others never saw. Thank you for doing what you thought was right, even when it broke you. That girl may not have had all the answers, but she laid the foundation for who you're becoming. You don't have to keep proving you've changed to people who are still stuck in chapters you've already healed from. Some folks will always see you through the lens of your past because it's easier than acknowledging your growth. But their comfort doesn't get to dictate your identity. You've done the work, you've cried the tears. You've fought for your healing in rooms where no one clapped for you. You've chosen silence over drama, peace over performance, growth over fitting in, and baby, that's something to be proud of. Maybe you made some choices that you wouldn't make today. That's not shame, that's evidence. Evidence that your mind has expanded, that your heart has matured, that your spirit has evolved. Stop dragging guilt into spaces that are meant for grace. Stop apologizing for how you had to cope, how you had to protect yourself, how you had to numb the ache just to get through the night. You didn't betray yourself. You were trying to preserve yourself, and that matters. That counts. There's something powerful about looking at your old self and not flinching. Not cringing, not editing her story, just honoring her, letting her be, letting her rest. She doesn't need your critique. She needs your compassion. She needs you to stand in this moment, crown fixed, head high, and say, we made it. Not perfectly, but powerfully. You've learned to move different now. You don't respond the way you used to. You've learned the beauty of boundaries. You've discovered the safety in silence. You've realized that not every battle deserves your energy. That's not you becoming cold. That's you becoming clear. You've reclaimed your power from the places that once drained you. You've stopped watering what refused to grow. And that's not something to apologize for. That's growth in motion. There will be moments where the old you tries to resurface. Habits, thoughts, patterns, they'll come knocking, dressed in nostalgia, whispering that it was easier back then. But ease isn't the same as elevation. And you didn't come this far just to go back to what broke you. You've tasted healing, you've touched peace, you've felt what it means to breathe without fear again. Don't give that up for comfort. Don't trade your becoming for someone else's version of who you're supposed to be. People may try to remind you of your past to keep you small. They may weaponize your history as proof you're unworthy of your present. But listen to me, no one gets to shame you for a story they never had to live. No one gets to edit your testimony to fit their narrative. You are not who you used to be, and that's the point. The truth is, some people only knew you in your brokenness. They got used to your silence. They depended on your lack of boundaries. So now that you've grown, they feel unsettled. That's not your burden, that's their invitation to grow too, but whether they grow or not, that's not your business. Your job is to keep healing, keep rising, keep becoming, to stop explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding. Let the past be what it was. Let it sit where it belongs. Don't resurrect pain just to validate your transformation. You don't owe explanations. You don't owe updates. You don't owe your past an apology for outgrowing it. You just owe yourself the freedom to move forward fully, fiercely, and free. There's power in the pause. Power in stepping back, in going quiet, in choosing stillness when everything around you says hustle, prove, perform. And I know that silence used to scare you. You used to think that if you weren't moving, you weren't winning. If you weren't showing, posting, responding, explaining, then somehow you were falling behind. But now you've learned that peace is not in the noise. The real power is in the restraint, in knowing when to say nothing, in knowing when to stop pouring into things that don't pour back. You've grown into the kind of woman who doesn't beg to be understood anymore. You've stopped making announcements. You're not here to prove anything to anybody. You've realized that your worth doesn't live in how much you produce or how many people clap for you. It lives in your presence, your boundaries, your breath, and sometimes the most divine thing you can do is pull away, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. Because you've spent enough time performing strength, now you're practicing rest. You're learning that rest is not weakness. It's warfare, it's recovery, it's you saying, I matter enough to stop when I need to. There was a time you thought rest meant you were lazy. You thought pausing meant you weren't trying hard enough. But that mindset came from a place of lack, from people who only felt valuable when they were exhausted. You've been there, burned out, worn thin, saying yes when your soul was screaming no. You've shown up for people who would have forgotten your name if you stopped showing up for them. You've smiled through situations that were silently draining you, and now you're reclaiming your energy. Now you've learned that every yes has a cost, and you're finally counting it. There's something powerful about a woman who knows when to pause, when to walk away, when to unplug, when to disappear into herself, not because she's lost, but because she's regrouping. That kind of woman doesn't panic when she's misunderstood. She doesn't chase closure from places that can't offer it. She doesn't rush to explain herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. She just pauses. She leans into God. She leans into her own breath, into her own rhythm, because peace doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's invisible, but it's real. You used to run toward chaos because it felt familiar. You used to confuse urgency with importance. You used to think you had to be everywhere, doing everything for everyone, but now you've slowed down. You've learned how to sit with yourself. You've learned how to let things pass by that don't align with your peace. And that's growth, that's wisdom, that's strength that doesn't scream, it just stands. This version of you doesn't panic when nothing's happening. You don't need constant movement to feel worthy. You've realized that what's meant for you won't miss you because you took a breath. You know now that divine things unfold in divine timing, and no amount of rushing can speed up what's sacred. You've given yourself permission to pause, and in that pause you're healing, you're hearing things more clearly. You're seeing who's really there. You're learning that the people who honor your pause are the ones who deserve your presence. And girl, I see you. I see how you used to feel guilty for needing time, for needing space, for needing quiet. You were trained to believe that being still meant you were falling behind, but now you've learned that you're not behind, you're being aligned. God's not punishing you in the pause. He's protecting you. He's preparing you. He's stretching you. You're not stuck. You're being made ready. You don't owe anyone constant access to you. You don't have to keep being available at the cost of your own soul. You get to step back. You get to go quiet. You get to gather yourself without feeling bad for it. The world will keep spinning. Let it, but your spirit, your mind, your peace, that's worth preserving. So if you feel the nudge to pull back, don't fight it. If your soul is asking for quiet, give it. You are not less than because you're not visible. You are not falling apart because you've chosen stillness. You are recalibrating, resetting, becoming. There is power in the pause, and the woman who can pause, who can rest, who can choose silence over noise, that woman is unstoppable. Because she's not performing for the world, she's preparing for what's next. And sometimes fixing your crown doesn't mean standing tall in the spotlight. It means bowing your head in the quiet and letting God do what only He can. God already approved the version you're becoming. You don't have to beg for acceptance. You don't have to shrink, perform, or edit yourself into something more palatable. You don't need to keep auditioning for a role He already wrote for you. He saw the mess. He saw the mistakes. He saw the late nights, the breakdowns, the private battles, and He still called you, still chose you. Still said, that one's mine. Before the titles, before the transformation, before you even believed you were worthy of the calling, He already stamped your purpose with His approval. I know what it feels like to wrestle with the in-between, that space where you're not who you used to be, but you're not quite sure who you're becoming yet. That awkward middle ground where old patterns still tug on your sleeve, and the new version of you feels like she hasn't fully settled in. And it's in that tension that the enemy loves to whisper lies, that you're too late, that you're not ready, that you're too flawed to be favored. But none of those things disqualify you. They just make you real. They make you a testimony. Sometimes we think we have to be fully healed to be used, that we have to have all the answers, a spotless track record, a squeaky clean past. But God doesn't wait until you're perfect. He moves when you're willing, when you're open, when you show up with trembling hands and a surrendered heart. That's when He says, now I can work, because what the world calls broken, He calls beautiful. What the world calls too far gone, He calls just getting started. And the beautiful thing is, His approval isn't tied to people's opinions. Their permission isn't required for your purpose. You've spent too much of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for someone to validate what God already confirmed. You've explained yourself, justified your growth, toned yourself down so others could feel comfortable. But baby, it's time to stop waiting for consensus. It's time to stop asking people for directions to a place they've never been. You are becoming someone they may not recognize, and that's okay. You're not here to be familiar. You're here to be faithful. The woman you're becoming doesn't need applause to move forward. She's not built on popularity. She's rooted in purpose. She doesn't need everyone to get it, because she knows the one who gave it. And when you know who called you, you don't worry about who didn't clap. You don't lose sleep over who left. You don't dim your light just because it makes others squint. You've outgrown that. You've outgrown shrinking. You've outgrown doubting yourself because others couldn't see the vision. It wasn't theirs to see, it was yours to carry. This becoming isn't easy. There are moments when it feels lonely. Moments when you miss the version of you that didn't know what she knows now. Moments when the weight of responsibility feels too heavy for hands that once only knew how to survive. But God is not intimidated by your process. He's not confused by your complexity. He's not disappointed in your detours. He knew every misstep you'd take and still said, she's the one. That crown you keep fixing, it's not slipping because you're failing. It's shifting because you're growing. And as you grow, you're going to feel some resistance, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're stepping into something right. You're interrupting generational patterns, you're breaking cycles, you're redefining what worth looks like. That kind of becoming costs something. It costs comfort, it costs approval, it costs fitting in, but it buys you freedom. And baby, freedom looks good on you. You don't need to be polished to be powerful. You just need to be present. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stay willing, willing to be molded, willing to be stretched. Willing to trust that even when you feel unseen, you're still chosen. That even when it feels like nothing's working, something sacred is being built inside of you. You're not going backward. You're not losing yourself. You're being refined. And no, it doesn't always feel good, but it's always for good. God isn't done with you, not even close. The version you're becoming, she's necessary. She's anointed. She's equipped in ways you haven't even discovered yet. So don't despise the process. Don't doubt your progress. Don't discredit what's rising in you just because it hasn't fully arrived. You are not who you used to be. And that's not just progress, that's a promise.